more of the crystals. I don't know exactly what they're called. Also, I think I figured out why it keeps crashing. It seemed like it was running just fine until I tapped on the live button, then it crashed. So it might have to do something with the live stream overlay. I don't know though. I didn't have that issue on the first day, but I think from now on I'm just not going to touch that. Because it was running for like a good 10 minutes there. So since we can't really do anything for the event right now, I think we should just prepare for the event by upgrading equipment and whatnot. I did get this thing to Awakening 3, but I don't really like it too much. It is a good piece of equipment. And don't get me wrong. I mean, triggers upon using command skill, ultimate skill, applies 38% physical technique increase to self for a total of 1 times in 1 turn. Not really the best, especially at Awakening 2. And then this one right here is actually pretty good. When a wave starts, applies 25% curse technique damage taken, decreased to self for 3 turns. Now, it says when a wave starts, which kind of makes it questionable of whether it stacks. Because Yaga increases physical and curse damage for everybody on the team by 31.8%, and that one stacks up. This one right here might actually, especially because it literally says auto, a survival lives, 1,000 lives, 1 survival. And so it might actually stack every turn, which means on that from that third turn, you are always getting 75% curse technique damage taken decrease, which would be really good for keeping a character alive. And that makes it an amazing defense thing for as long as you're getting hit by curse technique. Or even hybrid attacks would be significantly decreased in damage from this. Now, if you're up against like a character, like if you're trying to get, where is it? If you're trying to get this piece of equipment, they literally do nothing but physical attacks the entire time. So, I mean, it would be absolutely horrendous to try and use it for that one. But other than that, it is pretty good for defense. Like if you're trying to do the one, I don't actually think I have it. I don't, but it's the guy, why can't I remember his name? Jugo. If you're trying to do the one against Jugo, it would be incredibly good because you're taking 75% less damage from all of his attacks from the third wave in the battle. And even from the first one, you're already taking 50%, 25% less. The second one, you're already taking 50% less. But that's only if it stacks. Which I don't really want to test. I have flagged equipment that I know I want to upgrade. So, I mean, obviously, these 3 right here, in excellent shape, restores my ultimate gauge by 260 every 4 turns. And then when a wave starts, I get 25% physical technique damage decreased to self for 3 turns. Which, again, if it stacks, is amazing. Not sure if it does, though. This one right here is also pretty good. I mean, this right here is actually really nice. Triggered upon using ultimate skill. Applies 80% physical technique increase to self for a total of 1 turn, 1 time. So you're just getting 80% physical technique increase, which is really good for an ultimate on a character who does only physical damage. Like Maki, otherwise that green Yuji. Black Flash Yuji is insane with it because his first attack is guaranteed to be a Black Flash. I mean, it is really good on him. And it's actually even better for him because if you use his skill, his buff, then he has a 100% chance of hitting a critical hit. With this right here, every time you land a critical hit, you recover 200 ultimate gauge. That means every single turn, except for the turn that you are using your buff, you are getting 200 ultimate gauge, plus whichever amount you're getting for doing your basic attacks. So, I mean, that one's absolutely insane. And the even better thing about that is that even when Yuji uses his buff, he restores 181 ultimate gauge for himself. So, I mean, he literally just keeps getting and keeps getting and keeps getting that ultimate. He is an amazing unit for that purpose. The only bad thing about him is he only has physical technique like Maki, but he makes up for it with his critical hit and insane ultimate gauge refill. So I did flag this one because this one's really good for that. And getting a huge increase of black flash rate and critical rate like that is amazing for bosses because black flash will do so much break damage. It's insane. Right here is another one that I thought was really good. It is an amazing support one. It doesn't really have the best stats on it. It does only increase physical technique, which is kind of like, for the character I have it on, because I have it on Yaga. Doesn't really help him too much, but it's also not the worst thing because most of his attacks actually are from physical technique instead of his curse technique. The only thing I think that's on his curse technique is his third skill and his ultimate. In his ultimate, you're not really using for its curse technique anyways. You're more using that to debuff the absolute buttload out of your enemies. And for his third one, you're also using it to debuff. I mean, so it's not really too much of a downfall for him. But yeah, anytime he uses a command skill or an ultimate skill, he applies 30% ultimate gauge fill rate increase to all allies for 2 turns. I mean, that's actually really good. Oh, cool. Samsung just gave me a notification. So, I mean, it is really nice to have that, especially if you want your Gojo to just have his ultimate on his second turn. It actually works perfectly for it. Now for this one right here, oh, I forgot I have to press and hold on it to see it. This one right here will help later on, but I did have a question for it because it says when target enemies are in break status or when self puts them into break status, recovers 200 ultimate gauge for self, which is useful. Don't get me wrong, it is actually really useful. That's just another free way to increase your ultimate gauge. And if he has an ultimate gauge along with his teammates, then that means when they use their ultimate gauges together, they restore each other's ultimate gauge through the cooperative ultimates. I'm like fumbling on my words here, my bad. So I mean, that is really good. My only question about it is, does it only work against bosses? Or will it be adaptable to the point that if you're just going against the little characters and you destroy one, eliminate an enemy, does it also restore it? If so, that's actually really good. If not, not as good, nearly as good, but it's still good just for this. So it's still worth investing into. Those right there were my top 3 that I always want on my main characters. The other one that I want on my backup character is actually this one. It's amazing. I mean, triggered upon using command skill or ultimate skill, recovers 30% HP for all allies. That's amazing. That means you are restoring a total of 120% health points for the majority of your, not for the majority, for all of your team. Now, if you don't have characters that are low on health, it's not really doing anything. But I mean, for my Toge, for example, I mean, he hurts himself constantly. I even have a piece of, piece of equipment on him to restore his health. Gives him 35% HP back. Now, 35% HP, but he can only use this every 5 turns. So, I mean, not exactly the best thing. Plus, he's already in the negatives by 1% after using this after the 3rd turn. Plus, if he's getting attacked, I mean, it's not really going to keep him alive, so you'd really want that other equipment. Once Gojo disappears and uses his emergency, then that one starts pulling. So, I mean, that is another one that I do like. but I don't know how much I like it yet, which is why it's sitting at a solid 30. I mean, this right here is pretty good too. Applies 10% damage taken decreased to all allies for 4 turns. But it's only when the battle starts, so it's only really good for the beginning of the game and not really for bosses. So I mean, if you're trying to clear a stage or something, it's amazing, but other than that, it's not really pulling its own weight. The rest of these I don't really like all too much. I mean, this one right here is kind of nice because you do get an insane buff from it. I mean, you use your ultimate skill, you get 70% physical technique increase. And then you get 30% physical technique increase as well. And I did check this one because I was like, oh, 100% increase, might as well use the other one. It's actually not like that. You get the 70% increase first, and then multiplicatively, you get the 30% as well. So it's not even coming out to 100%. It's coming out to around 120, 115%, which is amazing. Once you do awaken it, you do get resurrection, which is really good. I mean, person I was kind of thinking about was, oh, if I put this on my Toge can actually, once he gets destroyed, he can just come back. But then I kind of thought about it after seeing Panda's resurrection. You only come back with like 10% HP. So I mean, he uses his skill to increase my ally's ultimate gauge one more time. And he literally just puts himself at 1 HP, so he's not really worth it. Once you get your characters maxed out a bit more, it might be. Right here was another one that wasn't too bad. Use a command skill, 60% physical technique increase itself for 2 turns. Pretty nice. Not the worst thing in the world, that's for sure, but you can only use it again after 7 turns, which is a huge cooldown, not really that good. And the thing that I didn't really like about it was this right here. It says when turn starts, if self's HP is no more than 50% and can be used only once in the battle, you evade 1 attack. I mean, you can only use it once ever. So I mean, there's no way to refresh it. You get 1 dodge throughout the entirety of the game and you're done. So I didn't really find that one worth anything. This one right here would be really good for a defense character, but what I have realized very quickly in this game is that the defense characters are not worth it. I mean, yeah, they're nice and everything, but you'd much rather have buff characters and attack characters than some defense characters. I mean, use a command skill, draw attack to self for 2 turns, can be used again after 6 turns. So not only, it's just not worth it. And it's not worth using a defense character unless they pack a decent punch. I think Panda is about the best defense character in the game, and he doesn't even hit that hard. Other than that, I would have to say this girl right here, the blue-haired girl, she actually is a decent defense character as well because she has counterattack, but she doesn't do enough damage to make up for it. So, I mean, it's still not the best. And then right here, it's kind of terrible. When self lands a critical hit, applies 12% damage taken decreased to all allies for a turn. Which means, number 1, unless your character is the first one attacking, that's not going to do anything for your team. And then number 2, this is an equipment you would want on a defensive character, and they have terrible critical hit chance. So it's just not worth it in general. Like, that whole thing isn't even worth it. I mean, the only thing that would be is the critical technique increase by 5.95%. But I mean, right here, this one has one. Exact same stats, I think. Yeah, and this one's better. I can use a command skill, 40% damage taken decreased to self for 2 turns. Not bad because it's damage in total. Only bad thing is horrible refresh time, 7 turns. 6 turn starts can only be used once in the battle. Curse to energy efficiency to all allies for 3 turns. This right here is not horrible, but it's also not that good either. I mean, you kind of want to get into the sense of preserving and figuring out how you want to use your curse technique energy. Because unless you know how to handle that and you're always just going for the strongest, hardest attack all the time, you're not going to win regardless, even if you do have this. Plus, this only kicks in after the 6th turn. And it can only be used once, so it's another worthless one, pretty much. Right here, this one here I think was actually pretty good. Yeah, 35% HP for self, recovers 10 cursed energy. Horrible cooldown time, 6 turns. So I mean, it's absolutely awful. Battle starts, applies 10% damage taken, decrease the self. That one's not bad. I mean, it's not. We already talked about this one. This one